By the midpoint of the season, the novelty of Shedeur Sanders' emergence had worn off, but the respect had only deepened. The Browns' locker room no longer talked about him as the rookie QB. He was simply the quarterback. There was no sense of tiptoeing around his role or questioning whether he could handle the pressure. He'd already proved that, week after week, through a steady mix of smart decisions and flashes of brilliance.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
The players closest to him often said the same thing. His real gift wasn't just his arm, but his temperament. He didn't ride the emotional roller coaster that can derail young quarterbacks. He could throw a touchdown and look exactly the same as if he'd just taken a sack. That wasn't detachment, it was discipline. Sanders had learned early on that the NFL rewards players who can keep their heads steady through the highs and lows, and he lived by that rule every snap. One afternoon after practice, offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt summed it up best to a group of reporters. When you call a play for Shedeur, you know it's going to be run exactly how you designed it. He's not guessing out there. If the defense takes something away, he moves on to the next read. That's rare in a young quarterback. It wasn't just the coaching staff noticing. Other teams' defenders, even the ones tasked with stopping him, were starting to speak openly about his game. After facing the Browns in Week 9, a veteran safety from the opposing team admitted, "He's tricky, man. He doesn't lock onto receivers, and you can't bait him into bad throws." For a rookie, that's scary. Still, Sanders was the first to point out that he wasn't flawless. In a mid-season press conference, after a game where he'd thrown his first interception in weeks, he didn't blame the route or the protection. "That's on me," he said. "I got greedy when I should have taken what the defense gave me. You clean it up, learn, and move on." That accountability only made his teammates rally around him more. Wide receiver Amari Cooper explained it during a radio appearance. "When your quarterback owns his mistakes, it makes everyone else want to do the same. He's setting the tone without even trying to." Off the field, Sanders kept a surprisingly quiet profile for someone who'd become the face of a franchise. Sure, the endorsement offers kept rolling in. Sports drinks, apparel companies, even a local car dealership wanted him for ads. But he picked his spots. If it wasn't something he genuinely liked or used, he passed. "People can tell when you're faking it," he told a teammate. "I'd rather do less and keep it real." This approach only strengthened his connection with fans. In Cleveland, authenticity is currency, and Sanders had it in spades. He wasn't trying to be a celebrity. He was trying to be a quarterback who delivered wins. And in a city that had seen too many false dawns, that focus was refreshing. The turning point in his rookie season came during a cold, late November home game against a division rival. The Browns were down by 4 with under 2 minutes left, no timeouts, and 80 yards to go. It was the kind of moment that can turn a quarterback into a legend, or expose him. From the first snap of that drive, Sanders was in complete command. He hit short routes to move the chains, worked the sidelines to stop the clock, and when the defense finally crept up, dropped a 27-yard strike over the middle to set up a red zone shot. With less than 20 seconds on the clock, he rolled out to his right, evaded a blitzing linebacker, and found his tight end in the back of the end zone for the game-winning touchdown. The stadium erupted. Fans who'd been clutching their scarves in the freezing wind were suddenly roaring, hugging strangers, and chanting his name. It was more than just a win. It was a moment Cleveland fans would talk about for years. In the post-game locker room, Sanders' reaction was telling. While his teammates celebrated, he quietly sat with his play sheet, circling notes and making small marks. When a reporter asked what he was doing, he smiled and said, "Just making sure I remember what worked and what didn't." You don't want to waste a drive like that. You want to know how to do it again. That single quote made headlines the next day. Analysts praised his mindset, pointing out that many rookies would have been basking in the glory. But Sanders was already focused on repeating the success. It was a glimpse into why his growth had been so rapid. He didn't treat big moments as accidents. He treated them as blueprints. As the season pushed toward its final stretch, the playoff chatter started. Cleveland, which had looked like a middle-of-the-pack team in August, was suddenly in the hunt. thanks in no small part to the stability Sanders brought to the offense. His numbers weren't gaudy, but they were efficient. High completion percentage, low turnovers, steady yardage. He wasn't chasing stats, he was chasing wins. In team meetings, veterans began leaning on him for input. In huddles, players hung on his calls. In practices, the energy picked up when he was under center. These weren't just signs of respect. They were signs that the Browns had finally found the quarterback who could be their cornerstone. Even the critics, who'd been slow to acknowledge his rise, were coming around. One national columnist, who'd previously called Sanders a nice backup with upside, wrote a mid-season piece titled, "I Was Wrong About Shedeur Sanders." In it, he admitted that Sanders' football IQ and decision-making were far beyond what he'd expected. Through it all, Sanders kept the same even keel. Asked about the article, he shrugged. "If people change their minds, cool. If they don't, that's fine too. I'm not here to win arguments. I'm here to win games." It was that mentality, paired with his skill set, that made the Browns' front office start thinking beyond the season. Extension talks weren't on the table yet, but internally, there was a sense that they were building around him, not just for next year, but for the long haul. And as for Sanders, he still drove the same car he had in college. He still spent extra hours in the film room. He still texted his receivers late at night with ideas for routes and adjustments. For all the noise outside the building, inside it, he was just the same calm, unshakable quarterback who'd walked into his debut months earlier and quietly changed the trajectory of a franchise. By then, the question wasn't if he was the Browns' future. It was how far that future could go. And in Cleveland, for the first time in a long time, that question felt exciting instead of exhausting. By December, the transformation was complete, not just for Shedeur Sanders, but for the entire Cleveland Browns franchise. What had started as a rookie quarterback trying to prove he belonged had turned into something much bigger. The Browns, once the NFL's punchline for quarterback instability, had become a team with an identity, a direction, and for the first time in years, a leader the city could truly believe in. The proof wasn't just in the stats, though those were impressive. Sanders' completion percentage was hovering in the high 60s. His touchdown-to-interception ratio was among the best for a rookie in recent memory, and his passer rating was creeping into the territory usually reserved for veterans in their prime. But numbers didn't tell the whole story. What mattered was the trust. When Sanders walked into the huddle, there was no hesitation, no side glances, no quiet doubt from teammates. Everyone knew he would get them into the right play, whether that meant a shot downfield or a check down to keep the chains moving. Even the defense had bought into him, playing with extra energy because they trusted that if they could hold opponents to 20 points or fewer, Sanders would take care of the rest. One cold afternoon in Baltimore, that trust was put to the ultimate test. It was the kind of game that eats rookies alive. Hostile road crowd, top-ranked defense, playoff implications on the line. The Ravens blitzed early and often, forcing Sanders to get rid of the ball in under 2 seconds. For much of the first half, the Browns' offense looked smothered. But Sanders didn't flinch. At halftime, he calmly told the offense, "They're trying to speed us up. Let's slow them down." In the third quarter, he started using hard counts to draw offsides penalties, mixed in quick screens to punish aggressive linebackers, and hit a deep shot off play action when the safeties finally bit. It was a masterclass in mid-game adjustment, something you expect from seasoned veterans, not a first-year QB. The Browns didn't win that game, but when the locker room cleared out afterward, several players told reporters that it was the moment they knew Sanders wasn't just talented. He was built for this. "The dude's unshakable," said running back Nick Chubb. "We were getting hit in the mouth all game, and he kept us in it." That's leadership. Meanwhile, in Cleveland, the city's relationship with Sanders had shifted from curiosity to outright devotion. Jerseys with his name sold out before Christmas. Murals started popping up downtown, depicting him in his Browns uniform with the caption, "The future is now." Local sports talk shows debated which other young quarterbacks he should be compared to, with names like Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and even Patrick Mahomes coming up more often than anyone expected. What made it even more remarkable was how Sanders handled the growing attention. He didn't shy away from the spotlight, but he never chased it either. If a microphone was in his face, he used the opportunity to talk about his teammates, his coaches, or the work still ahead. When asked about his rising national profile, he simply said, "The goal isn't to be known. The goal is to win. If we win, everything else takes care of itself." Inside the building, the coaching staff was quietly adjusting their playbook to suit him more and more. Early in the season, the offense had leaned heavily on the run game to protect Sanders. By December, Stefanski was trusting him with empty backfield looks, letting him read the entire field and pick his spots. They started giving him more freedom to audible at the line of scrimmage, and he rewarded that trust by consistently putting the offense in favorable positions. One of the most telling moments came in a tight December matchup against the Bengals. On a crucial 3rd and 6 late in the fourth quarter, the play call from the sideline was a standard quick-out route to move the chains. At the line, Sanders saw the defense creeping into a soft zone and audibled to a seam route for his tight end. The snap came. The coverage was exactly what he expected, and the pass was on target for a 25-yard gain. The Browns bled the clock, kicked the game-winning field goal, and walked off with the win. Afterwards, Stefanski admitted, "That wasn't my call. That was Shedeur seeing something and trusting his guy to make a play. That's the kind of growth we want to see." The players saw it too. Defensive captain Myles Garrett said it best, "When your quarterback starts winning games with his brain as much as with his arm, that's when you know you've got something special." Off the field, Sanders continued to be a steady presence. He participated in multiple community events, quietly, without press releases, visiting schools, surprising youth teams at practice, and spending time at local charities. In one instance, he showed up unannounced to a high school game, sitting in the bleachers with the parents and cheering on the kids like any other fan. Photos of him in a hoodie and Browns beanie, grinning and clapping from the stands, spread quickly through Cleveland social media. Those moments mattered. They weren't scripted or tied to any sponsorship. They were just a young quarterback connecting with the city in an authentic way. It made the bond between Sanders and Cleveland feel deeper than just wins and losses. By the time the final stretch of the regular season rolled around, the Browns were firmly in playoff contention. The offense was more balanced, the defense was playing with swagger, and Sanders had emerged as the unquestioned leader of the team. In the locker room before a must-win game against the Steelers, he stood up and addressed the team, not with a fiery speech, but with a steady reminder, "We've been here before. Every game this year, we've been proving people wrong. Let's do it again, and let's make sure we're still playing in January." They went out and won that game convincingly. Sanders throwing 2 touchdowns and orchestrating a 14-play, clock-draining drive in the fourth quarter to seal it. After the final whistle, as the stadium roared and confetti cannons fired, Sanders didn't pound his chest or wave to the cameras. He shook hands, hugged teammates, and headed straight to the locker room. Inside, someone asked him if he'd thought about what it meant to take the Browns to the playoffs as a rookie. His answer was simple: "It means we're not done yet." That was the thing about Shedeur Sanders. No matter how big the moment, he always looked at it as part of a bigger picture. He wasn't interested in being remembered for one season or one playoff run. He wanted to build something lasting. And for a city that had spent decades searching for the right quarterback, that mindset was as valuable as his arm strength or his accuracy. Cleveland didn't just have a quarterback, they had a leader, a culture setter, and maybe, just maybe, the cornerstone of a championship future. As winter settled over the city and the playoffs loomed, there was a different feeling in the air. Not just hope. Cleveland had felt hope before, and it had burned them. This was something sturdier. This was belief. And it all started with one rookie who, in less than a year, had gone from an overlooked draft pick to the heartbeat of a franchise. The playoff run was uncharted territory for this version of the Cleveland Browns. For years, even when the team managed to sneak into contention, there had always been a feeling of fragility, like one bad game, one injury, or one quarterback meltdown could send everything crashing down. But with Shedeur Sanders under center, that unease had been replaced by something sturdier: confidence. It wasn't overconfidence. Sanders didn't allow that. But it was a quiet, collective belief that no matter the opponent, the Browns would be prepared. The city could feel it. On the Monday before Wild Card Weekend, fans were bundled in parkas and Browns beanies, lining up outside the team shop to buy playoff merch. Kids wore Sanders jerseys over their winter coats. Talk radio was wall-to-wall football, not with anxiety, but with anticipation. Inside the facility, the mood was businesslike. Sanders had already shifted his focus to their upcoming opponent, breaking down film until late into the night. He sat with the offensive line to talk about protection calls, spent extra time with his receivers to discuss route timing, and even pulled aside rookie backups to make sure they understood every package in the game plan. What made Sanders so valuable wasn't just his physical tools. It was that he approached preparation like a 10-year veteran. On Tuesday morning, during a red zone walkthrough, he corrected a receiver's alignment by half a yard. That's the difference between a touchdown and a turnover, he explained. No ego, no lecture, just a calm correction that carried weight because everyone knew he was right. When game day arrived, the energy inside the stadium was electric. Sanders jogged out of the tunnel to a deafening roar, his breath visible in the cold night air. He didn't wave to the crowd or make a big show, just a nod to his teammates as they lined up for warm-ups. His expression was the same one he'd worn all year, composed, locked in, unshakable. The first half was a grind. The opposing defense came out with an aggressive game plan, press coverage on the outside, constant pressure from the edges. Sanders took a couple of hits early, including one that knocked him to the turf for a moment. But he popped back up, dusted off, and jogged to the huddle without so much as a grimace. On the sideline, veteran tackle Jack Conklin leaned over to a teammate. "You see that? That's what I'm talking about. No panic." Midway through the second quarter, Sanders started finding his rhythm. A quick slant to Cooper for a first down. A perfectly timed seam route to his tight end for 22 yards. Then, on 3rd and goal from the 6, he dropped back, surveyed the field, and fired a strike to the back of the end zone. Touchdown. The crowd erupted, towels waving, the energy in the stadium hitting another gear. But Sanders didn't celebrate like the game was over. He knew better. Playoff football has a way of testing your composure when you least expect it. The second half was exactly that test. The opponent rallied, taking a slim lead in the fourth quarter. The Browns got the ball back with just over 3 minutes to play, down by 4, the season hanging in the balance. This was the moment every quarterback dreams of, and every fan fears. But Sanders didn't look nervous. In the huddle, he simply said, "We've done this before. Let's go finish it." The drive was surgical. Short passes to the sideline to stop the clock. A quarterback sneak on 4th and inches to keep the season alive. A perfectly executed draw play to catch the defense off guard. And then, with under 30 seconds left, he dropped back, pump faked to freeze the safety, and lofted a pass to the corner of the end zone. Caught. Touchdown. The stadium exploded. Sanders jogged to the sideline, helmet in hand, as the defense closed out the final seconds. When the clock hit 0, he allowed himself a small smile. Nothing more. In the locker room afterward, teammates mobbed him, dumping water over his head, chanting his name. When the media finally got to him, his answers were exactly what they'd been all season. Focused, team-oriented, steady. "We've got another game to get ready for," he said. "Enjoy this tonight, but tomorrow we're back to work." That mindset carried into the next round. The Browns, riding the momentum of their wild card win, faced a heavily favored opponent in the divisional round. Analysts gave them little chance, but Sanders never once let the underdog label affect his preparation. "Respect is earned, not given," he told a reporter midweek. "We'll earn it on Sunday." The game was a slugfest, trading punts and field goals in the first half. Sanders didn't force anything, content to take what the defense gave him. In the third quarter, he engineered a methodical 14-play drive that chewed up nearly 8 minutes and ended with a touchdown pass that silenced the home crowd. Late in the fourth, trailing by 3, the Browns had a chance to tie. Many rookies would have played for overtime. Sanders wanted the win. He marched the offense into field goal range, then, with time running out, checked out of a conservative run play and threw a quick out to set up a manageable third down. On the next snap, he threaded a pass between 2 defenders to set up the go-ahead touchdown. The Browns won, shocking the league. Suddenly, the same national voices that had doubted Sanders were praising his poise, his leadership, his ability to perform under playoff pressure. Some even dared to say it out loud. The Browns have their franchise quarterback. Back in Cleveland, the celebration was wild but short-lived. The AFC Championship was next, and Sanders treated it like any other game. He studied the opponent's blitz packages, worked with his center on snap timing, and made sure his receivers understood every possible adjustment. If they throw something new at us, he told them, we'll be ready. The championship game was the toughest test yet. The opponent's pass rush was relentless, their secondary airtight. Sanders took more hits in the first quarter than he had in entire games earlier in the season. But he kept getting up, kept making plays when it mattered most. The Browns ultimately fell short, losing by a single score, but even in defeat, Sanders walked off the field with his head high. He had thrown for over 300 yards against one of the league's best defenses, and his leadership had kept Cleveland in the fight until the final whistle. When the locker room opened to the media, he didn't point fingers or make excuses. We didn't finish, he said simply. That's on all of us, myself included. We'll be back. And in that moment, Cleveland believed him. They'd seen enough in one season to know that this wasn't a flash in the pan. Shedeur Sanders wasn't just the quarterback of the present. He was the cornerstone of the future. The off-season was different now. Instead of uncertainty and speculation, there was purpose. The front office built the free agency plan around him. The coaching staff tailored the playbook to his strengths. The players returned early for voluntary workouts, eager to build on the chemistry they developed. When training camp opened, Sanders was no longer the quiet rookie trying to prove he belonged. He was the face of the franchise, the voice in the huddle, the reason fans showed up early to watch warm-ups. And while the rest of the league watched closely, wondering if he could take the next step, Cleveland already knew the answer. Because they'd seen it from day one, poise under pressure, relentless preparation, and a belief that no game, no moment was too big. That's why, when the first preseason game of the next year rolled around, the roar when he stepped onto the field wasn't just applause. It was the sound of a city that had finally found its leader. And Shedeur Sanders, as always, was ready.